Episode of You and the Law Podcast, the one and only law enforcement podcast that's tackling critical policing and social justice issues and provides insights into the daily realities of policing with your host, Chief Virgil Green.
Hey, I want to welcome you to another episode of You and the Law Podcast. I'm the host of the show, Chief Virgil Green. And as always, I want to thank you for taking the time to tune in and join us for definitely another informative topic this afternoon that we're going to be having. So let me bring on my guests to the podcast. Joe, how you doing?
Hey, thank you, Chief Green. I appreciate you, and I'm doing well. Yeah, it's a beautiful day in Denver here. And we were talking about it. It's not as cold as where you're at.
Yeah.
Beautiful day.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you mention Denver and you mention Minnesota, two things come to mind: snow and cold weather. But obviously Denver has a different type of cold. It's not maybe as frigid as it is here.
Yeah, it's not. I grew up in Minnesota, as I mentioned to you, and I was there 18 years. I got out of there as fast as I could. But it was, and then I went to California, and you're right.
Nice place to go.
It was a nice place to go. And I probably will find myself back there at some point, potentially. But Denver's great. I love Denver. I have family here. I have good friends here, and my wife and I love living here. It's not, as you say, as frigid. It can get cold, but you don't like the weather in Denver, wait an hour, it's going to change.
Well, man, and so I'm from Oklahoma City, not originally, but I've been in there, moved to Oklahoma City in 1989. And you hear the same thing about Oklahoma City. I know we're talking about weather on a podcast, but just like Oklahoma, people will say, hey, just stick around. The weather's going to change.
Yeah.
Either it's going to be snowing up in the panhandle part of the state, and it's going to be tornadoes in the southern part of the state all on the same day. So,
right.
So definitely understand that. Yeah.
It can get dynamic.
Yeah, definitely can. Well, Joe, so you reached out to me on LinkedIn, about a month ago, man, and we started talking about getting you on the podcast, and here we are. And so tell our listeners a little bit about you and your law enforcement career and what got you into this tactical wellness training.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me on as a guest. I love talking about this stuff. I love sharing about it. It's absolutely a passion of mine because I was the person who needed this. And I started my law enforcement career with the California Highway Patrol, 2000 in the year 2000, and I came in and graduated from that academy February 9th, 2001. My wife at the time pinned my badge on me, and I got to carry that great honor of being a highway patrolman. And went to Hayward, broke in Hayward, California, did a lot of different stuff on that department. I became an FTO. I was an enhanced officer safety instructor, physical methods of arrest instructor, advanced investigation for accidents. I did a lot and had a lot of fun. I ended up becoming a commercial officer at the Scale facility, did that on a mobile road enforcement officer as well, which means you're driving one of the trucks around and stopping big rigs. And so I got to learn a lot about hazmat, a lot about how to approach a big vehicle and a lot of that. So over that entire time, I was really interested in the tactics. That's why I got involved with the enhanced officer safety training team, and we would do weapons tactics and fighting tactics, defensive tactics, right? It's not as often as we'd like it to be defensive as it is having to be offensive and take control of a situation.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I ended up lateraling over to a police department called Vacaville Police Department. City of Vacaville is just west of Sacramento. Ways, and got me a little bit closer to home. And I had small kids at the time, and so they're grown now. But I got the experience. What that really was nice. It gave me the experience of working for a big state agency on the highways, unincorporated roadways, a lot of drunks, a lot of drugs, a lot of speed, a lot of pursuits, that kind of stuff. And then I got to a smaller agency, police department, and I got that experience, community policing, having a beat, being able to get across the city in a matter of a handful of minutes and support your team. And it was amazing. I was highly skilled, highly trained, but what I didn't have, Virgil, is I didn't have those tools to help me on the job. And we were talking a little bit about these rings of wellness that I talk about. And I had the outer ring, which is off-duty stuff. That's community, that's spirituality, that's your family, that's time with, fulfilling your purpose outside of the job and building that. I had that the middle ring, which is, in my estimation, takes a little more time and a little more commitment. It's typically done off duty, but that's weapons tactics, might be tactical yoga, might be longer meditation sessions. It's cultivating wellness from the things that you're doing that's going to keep you safe on the job and aligned with health. So it might be working out as well. But what I didn't have, and what's so critical in my mind, and what I needed, what I teach about today, are the inner ring of wellness. And that are the tactics that an officer can use on the job, before a call, after a call, in a break during their shift, but in that 8 to 12 hours that they are working to reset themselves, reorient themselves. And it's what we were talking about earlier today, and that's creating a conduit from support on duty to maybe peer support, which it goes a little bit deeper. But what I really missed, and what I train now, are these tactical tools that an officer can take with them, just like their radio, just like their sidearm, on duty with them every day. And it's going to, Virgil, I didn't even know this word when I was a cop, reduce allostatic load. I didn't know what allostasis was. I didn't know that there was a load of stress that builds on an officer. I just knew I was fatigued, and I was working out, and I was staying, eating okay. I knew I was depressed. I knew I was disconnected. I knew that there was something going on, but I didn't know how to language it, and I didn't know how to sort it out. And so, I ended up leaving that job. I actually moved back to Minnesota, where you're at, to a town called St. Cloud, where I'd gotten a business degree and I've been, as you can see, I have quite a few tattoos. I was a tattoo artist since 1996. And continued to do that trade as I was as a police officer as well. Actually, funny thing is you can go on my website, Joe Swanson Tactical, and hear a story that I love to tell, and that's about academy stress. But the stress for me came with the CHP hadn't seen anybody like me, Virgil. They hadn't.
I was going to say, man,
tattoos down to here.
Yeah.
And I didn't have my neck done. I didn't have my hands done. But uniform of the day was short sleeves.
Yeah.
And needless to say, there was a spotlight right on me. And now they ended up, letting me be in short sleeves, and I went on to, go out and wear short sleeves as a patrolman. Got a lot of love from the community, a lot of love from the people that I was stopping, a lot of love from the drunks that the moment I rolled up my sleeves, they calmed down, and there was a connection there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I ended up leaving Vacaville. I worked as a tattooer again for many years. I got into corporate, worked for a few software companies as an executive and in corporate leadership. And I've had an amazing life, and it has brought me back full circle to this place where I get to help officers who are in a incredibly dynamic and challenging job, so much more oversight and so much more, the public's looking in on what we're doing, what you guys are doing, and I get to help them. And if I can prevent an officer who just doesn't know what's going on get back to a place of wellness, man, that fills my heart. It's and I want it to be, I want it to be I want it to be simple for them. It's never easy because it takes work, discipline, dedication, and commitment to those reps. But I want it to be simple, and that's what I try to bring in my trainings.
Yeah. Well, and there's more conversation about wellness now than it was.
Yeah.
Not even, let's say 5 years ago, at the height of the, pandemic, there wasn't really that much conversation about wellness. And then, after the tragic, events that took place up in Minneapolis with George Floyd, Minnesota, I think more than any other state, just saw so many police officers getting out of this profession, going out with PTSD, and and that kind of trickled down to some other states, but definitely it hit Minnesota pretty hard. And so since I've been here in 3 years, it's a state that has really invested a lot into wellness, and now we're seeing a lot more police departments around the country investing in wellness. And so, but I want to kind of go back to when you were with CHP, because I've had a guest on our podcast. She retired as an assistant chief with CHP, Joni Ruddick. She was in the Sacramento area. And so I don't know if you ever, that name sounds familiar to you, but
I would be curious what her badge number was, just to know where she was at when I came through. I was 16332 and was my badge number. Again, graduated February of 2001. It was CTC 300. And interestingly enough, I just saw a video of every academy class, the senior academy class does towards the end of their training, they do a 5-mile run from the CHP Academy at West Reed Avenue to the Capitol in Sacramento. And I just saw that they did that run, and it was CTC 325. So 25 years later, that history is still taking place. And I have a lot of friends still, commanders, chiefs, assistant chiefs. Many of them retired now as well. And all right up in that area.
I just looked her up. She actually came on the department in 1988. She retired in 2000. She retired in 2017. And she retired as an assistant chief, and she was in the Sacramento area. But I believe she actually started. She came from the San Diego area, so she kind of got sent halfway across the state.
They do that. Like that's one of those things in those big departments. You can find an area where you can just stay. You could stay there your whole career if you wanted, but if you want to promote, that just like coming out of the academy, I might get sent to West LA, and I live in Northern California. I might get get sent to Indio and I live, somewhere. Same with when you promote. There was guys getting promoted, and they'd be officer in Hayward. Now they got promoted as a sergeant, and sure enough, they're down in South LA, or they're somewhere that they're making their way, and it just kind of keeps going. So then you get lieutenant and up and up and up, and you just kind of got to be willing to move and make that adjustment.
The transition. She's a Black female. I think she was probably one of the first Black females that rose through the ranks, became an assistant chief.
Wow.
with CHP. Yeah, she is she has a story to tell about her career with
I bet.
CHP. So yeah, I'm gonna have to try to connect with her and see what her badge number was and
Yeah.
see. Like I said, she retired in 2017. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, I worked with some amazing, one of the, some of the best officers that I worked with were female. And there was one in Oakland that I can specifically remember. And my sergeant from the academy, who was the head of the PT staff, uh,
Hmm.
shout out Meg Planka. She was scary and amazing and just tough as nails. And I ended up working for her when I went to Hayward. She had promoted out of the academy to Hayward office, and I got to work for her when I first came on and was on the road.
Hmm.
What an amazing, so many amazing officers in that department. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a huge department,
Oh
obviously,
yeah.
but you know, I think you find these throughout a career. You find these people that you connect with and that you really enjoy working for.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it is now. We were talking about sort of the younger generation
Generation.
and their view on leadership and their view on this job that they're doing. And what's been your experience with that, Virgil, with newer officers in, you know, as a chief, seeing that kind of overseeing what's happening?
You know, it's definitely a generation that some are not really looking for the 20-year pension. Some are, and some are not.
Yeah.
And if and this is the one thing that I've seen and I've heard from officers: if you're not investing in them, they're going to go to an agency that is investing in them.
Yeah.
And in this profession is almost kind of come like, you know, me and a friend was talking about this not too long ago, where, you know, the NIL of college sports is taken off, and it's all about, well, it's all about the money, and it's about who do you want to play for, and how is that going to project you to get into the NFL or the NBA,
Mm,
especially now in football, because it's just so it's really done. I don't think people really anticipated what was going to happen when they opened up the floodgates to allow the players, which it was time, but there's so much money that's being put into the NILs and players getting these $1 million or $2 million deals is crazy.
mhm.
But when you look at it on the police side of it, it's like, okay, so when you come into a department, what kind of department are you coming into? You know, what is the what is the police chief like? What is the command staff like? What are the sergeants like?
Right.
What does the facilities look like? You know,
Mhm.
and if it's a, you know, and even in Minnesota and just like around the other parts of the country, Joe, you can kind of pick where you want to go now. I
Right.
mean, you know, when you went through CHP, man, I'm pretty sure it was probably a long line of people trying to get into to work for that agency. And you
It
know,
was tough.
yeah, and 10 years ago, man, you probably had, you know, even I'm gonna say 8 years ago, if you had two positions open, you would probably have two or 300 people applying. And
Mhm.
so now you
Wow.
may
It's
have,
so different now.
yeah, you may have five positions and you may only get 20 people to apply. And
Mhm.
it's all about what is the agency doing, and it really kind of comes back to training.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I've said in my position is that we've got to invest in officers wellness, we got to invest in officers training,
Yeah.
in leadership training, because you know, uh, people make some bad decisions and
Sure.
they end up on a TikTok video or YouTube video or somewhere, and it kind of comes back to that leadership.
Mhm.
So that's the one thing that I've seen is that there's a whole new generation of men and women who are coming into this profession, and it's not like, hey, I want to be here for 20 years, uh, but if they get another opportunity, they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an interesting switch. And I was just reading an article the other day about how so many departments are down officers,
Oh
and
yeah.
they can't fill fast enough. They
Yeah.
have a hard time filling any of them.
Well,
And
and Joe, there are some agencies that are really kind of reducing their standards. They're they're
absolutely,
they're reducing education requirements, or they're reducing now if you got something that's in your background that's not a felony.
hmm
Uh, people are getting second you know opportunities, and so and there's that's a whole nother conversation about agencies that are reducing some of their standards to bring in more men and women. But what does that say about the profession? Because this is a profession that in some states, Joe, you may only have to have, you know, 400 hours to be a police officer.
right,
But in a
right,
lot of states, you got to have, as a tattoo artist, this, man, if you become a tattoo artist, I'm pretty sure you got to have probably a couple of thousand hours
yeah,
of training to do what you do, just kind of like a hairstylist or a barber.
yeah. And you see that now in, I mean, to sort of try to bring a parallel here, you do see that in the body art industry, and I
Hmm.
will call it an industry. It once was a small community where there was, a walled garden around it, and
Yeah.
it's not anymore. So anybody can grab stuff off the internet and call themselves an artist,
Yeah.
and it dilutes the quality of what's happening. And you have to be
Hmm.
careful as a consumer going out and figuring out, okay, am I going to get the quality work that I want? And I would imagine that it's very similar in hiring with law enforcement. Is you
Yeah.
have to be very careful if you're going to reduce those standards to look at the character and the qualities that this person is displaying.
Hmm.
And over, if you can observe them for a while, that's great. But again, as you said, it's a quicker process that they're pushing people through. And I think it does lead to more of this turnover, leads to more use of force, leads to more misunderstandings. I mean, you got these First Amendment auditors out there just
Yeah.
popping videos every day on YouTube, making fools of cops who don't know simple constitutional rights.
Exactly.
And it's sad to see. But on the flip side of that, I think we're in a place where you also see officers, men and women, who are very, very dedicated to
Yeah.
this job, and they are seeking out training on their own.
Yeah.
And there's more and more training available for them, whether that's defensive tactics, whether that is resilience training like I do.
Hmm.
You're one of your last guests doing wellness and resilience training for,
Yeah.
for leadership. I mean, you can't have enough of that stuff. And it's cool to see the officers who are responding well to that and
Hmm.
taking advantage of it and getting involved, and
Yeah.
then sharing what they're learning, breaking down
Those are barriers. Yeah.
those barriers and this culture of silence that I
Yeah.
came up on. I didn't feel comfortable talking to my fellow officers, let
Hmm.
alone my command staff and my supervisors. I
Yeah.
did talk to a supervisor once about the way I was feeling, and it definitely got leaked around. It was not confidentiality. It got
Yeah.
leaked around the department. There
Hmm.
was there was a what they call a moral injury on my
Yeah.
end, and I didn't trust my administration at that point. And it
Yeah.
it was one of those things that as much as I wasn't feeling well, it also that pushed me away from wanting to stay and get better.
Yeah.
And so I love having these conversations with commanders, chiefs like yourself, sergeants, and even officers when I talk to them. And they're all about communicating awareness and
Hmm.
having these tough conversations around what effect this job will have on you, not if
Yeah.
it has an effect on you,
It when
will have.
will. Yeah.
And it's a biological thing. It's not weakness. It is biologically, the load is going to build up unless you reset it.
Yeah.
And one's ability to perform at a high level is directly correlated to their ability to recover on the other side of that.
Yeah.
You have to oscillate between those two.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. So Joe, I want to get into that. I want to remind those who are just now tuning into tonight's podcast that tonight we're talking about tactical wellness for first responders. And I've got on guest Joe Swanson, who runs a training program called Tactical Wellness Training. And he's a speaker and gets around pretty much all parts of the country. Joe, I see you're going to be in Kansas, I believe I saw, or is that?
Yeah, Kansas. Yeah. Kansas. We have some local training going around here in Denver, all throughout California, Northern, Southern, and Central Valley. Up in Minnesota, I was just talking to a local department just south of Minneapolis, actually. And so getting out there as well this next year in 2026 and, open to traveling. Again, this is my passion. This is what I want to do. I speak from a place of experience and as a former officer, and I want to bring these real tactical tools to officers. When they leave that training, they are going to be equipped, if they want to use these tools, to reset that allostatic load, which is the body's wear and tear, the buildup on the brain and the body that happens in chronic stress. Again, I didn't know what that meant when I was an officer. But look it up. It happens. It's biological. It's not weakness. And so, got one coming up in a great deputy chief, Lem Moore, out in the city of Derby, which is just south of Wichita. We connected again on LinkedIn and talked to him and his chief, and they're bringing me out there, and we're doing a little bit of a hybrid training for them. And so we have some different options. You can bring me in and you can train just your department. You can bring me in and you can host, and we can get some people around the area, regional people coming in. And that's what we're doing in Wichita. Or we can do somewhat of a hybrid. There's a lot of departments who have that, 25 to 50 officers, and they got to split training days between 2 or 3 days. And so we can train everybody on your staff over a couple days of training, over different, multiple weeks. And then we just fill in the rest of the remaining attendees with local people. What I found that does is, one, it builds greater community impact, and it builds a connectivity between the departments where that this guy over here has the same training, has the same understanding of how to address these wellness topics and resilience topics as you do and as your team does. So, yeah.
So Joe, I got a short video that you shared on LinkedIn that I want to play real quick.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna play this, and then on the other side of that, we'll talk about a little bit more about tactical wellness and training.
Absolutely. Hey, cops, I know this from experience, and it's a huge mistake to think you can just outwork the stress alone. Talking with somebody you trust, like a beat partner, releases oxytocin. It's going to lower your cortisol. It tells your body that you're safe again after that call. This is huge, especially if you're getting after it on shift. Now, this isn't theory. This is biology and how everybody's body works. Connection keeps you performing at your best. This is all part of the TOE framework that I teach. DM me with a department that needs to hear this.
Now, Joe, when you start talking about biology, man, now people are like, wait a second, I'm not going back to college for chemistry.
No, look, I keep this real simple, real straightforward. When you come to one of my trainings, it's not going to be a bunch of fluff. It's not going to be a bunch of nonsense. We're going to get into the biology of it, what happens to your body, because awareness of that was what I needed. And I think it's important for officers to know that this is the beginning of chipping away at that culture of silence, saying,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not different. I'm not broken. This is just biological. This is what's going to happen to one as you have stress, and as that stress response kicks in, nervous system is affected, the hormone system is affected, and it's what creates this hypervigilance. It creates sleep disorders and all these other health problems. It's just a fact. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I really focus on, we hit the nuts and bolts of that, but then what we get into, and that TOE framework that I'm talking about is part of a bigger, tactical resilience training system that I teach, that includes a baseline recovery stack. And that stack is peer check-in at a foundation. And this is not to replace your peer support team or that peer support foundation that you've built already into one's department. This is to enhance and strengthen it at the team level. And so peer check-in, grounding technique, which again brings you back to reality, keeps that mental spiral that can happen so easily with cops. It dissolves that. And we have breath work. This is amazing because you can do some very simple protocols that reduce that heart rate, reduce that cortisol spike, and get you back to a baseline where you can make clearer, more informed decisions in the moment. So after a pursuit, after a tough call, you're going to be elevated. Simple breath work and techniques that help with that. And then, as I mentioned, I was a tattooer. I've been an artist my whole life, and there is so much studies and research on visual journaling. This is not about art. This is not about being good at drawing. This is about processing experience through visually, through automatic, conscious or unconscious movements with one's hand. And so, we all carry, as cops, we all carry these little booklets, for notes and for jotting things down. You can have one of those, pull it out of your pocket of your BDU, out of your shirt pocket, take 90 seconds, and it's going to look like scribbles, patterns, and no words. And it will help process that experience either as a pressure release or as a reorientation. Super practical, super effective. And that's the 4 pieces or 4 protocols we dive into heavily in the training. And that's, again, the baseline recovery stack that I needed as an officer, and that I teach all around this, what I called that TOE framework. That's team resilience, organizational alignment, and whole person wellness.
Yeah. So, Joe, we've had on some guests on the podcast before. A couple of ladies that run a training organization called the Right Training. And they've got a part of that training, there's a ladder, and it kind of, where are you at on that ladder? Are you at the bottom of the ladder, the middle of the ladder, the top of the ladder? Where are you at? Because, we all have bad days. And the one thing that really that has reminded me of that podcast with these ladies and the training that they do is that oftentimes we don't know how to say where we're at on the ladder, to say, hey, I'm not having a good day. I may need to go home. Now here comes that stigma. If you got to go to your sergeant to say, listen, I'm just not having a good day and I need to go home. I need to take some PTO or whatever. Now you may have a sergeant who's going to say that's just not going to happen because now it's going to leave the shift short. What will we do? And the one thing that I have told sergeants and others in the command staff is that if somebody comes to you and they're telling you that they're having a bad day, send them home.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say, oh well, hey, we gotta have you here. We're gonna be short, because now if that person makes a bad decision or something happens, they're gonna come back and say, I told you that I was not having a good day. They
Right.
may have something happen at home or whatever it may be. And I just think, Joe, and I want to get your opinion on this, as you've been training and talking to people in the command staff and officers. Do you see where there is a problem where officers don't feel that their voices are being heard because they want to say something, but they fear there's going to be this retaliation, or kind of what you explained, that you said something, it wasn't kept in confidentiality.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, other people kind of know about your business when they shouldn't know about your business.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is where that peer check-in comes into play. You
Yeah.
have to hit this at the team level. There has to be team commitment, and this might be a little bit of a gap to bridge with
Hmm.
these newer officers and the older officer mentality, which I think is great. And what's the best peer check-in protocol? The one that you're going to use.
Hmm.
That is the best. And so if you can get them, again, a partner on shift saying, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Acknowledging what you're going through. Hey, yeah, that must have been a tough call, or I've had a day like you're having, I
Yeah.
understand. And then, hey, here are the resources. And then encouragement. You want me to walk to the sergeant's office with you? Now, hey, Sarge, my teammate here is having a hard day.
Yeah.
I got his shift cut. I got the beat covered.
Yeah.
I'll take his paper for him.
Hmm.
I'll take her paper. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Can we send that, can he have the PTO?
Yeah.
You get that team collective working, right? The understanding that, hey, I got your back and you got my back. And that reduces this culture of silence, this stigma around speaking about it.
Yeah.
Because we all know it, like what you said, is we all have had bad days.
Yeah.
And that officer that supports that officer in that moment of need is going to be supported at some point in reverse. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I do see that. It's a tough thing to work through, but I think, again, why the foundation of that baseline recovery stack is the peer check-in,
Uh-huh.
because it leads to that peer support, supervisor support, command support that you need. It
Yeah.
supports and enhances that.
Yeah. So Joe, there's another video that you've got out on YouTube, and it's addresses the ring of wellness.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to play a little bit of this, and I want to kind of come back after uh, showing some of this. What is that ring of wellness, and kind of talk to us about that ring of wellness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, there are 3 rings of wellness that we're going to talk about today. I think every officer needs to think about when they're cultivating wellness. It's the outer ring, middle ring, and inner ring. Now, this outer ring, for most of my career, I cultivated well. I had good friends, great family, good spiritual community. This is all about reminding us why we got into this job. It's all about purpose. And it happens off duty. It happens when we're not in the uniform on shift. Now, this middle ring, this is getting a little bit more tactical. This is sometimes on duty, sometimes off duty. This is physical fitness, weapons tactics, it's yoga, it's driving tactics. This is the kind of stuff that you do, but it takes time and it takes commitment. Okay, this is going to keep you safe and it's going to keep you sharp. These are both really important. Don't get me wrong. This is super important to your wellness. But this inner ring, this is critical. This is where I failed. This inner ring is all about your nervous system. And why is that important? Because we know that.
Yeah, Joe. So the ring of wellness, and
Yeah.
kind of speak on that, because I think that is obviously real important during your training to address this ring of wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. What I was getting to in that video, my training sits at the center. It sits at that inner ring. It's tactical. It's on duty. It's techniques that you bring with you every day,
Hmm.
and it supports that middle ring, keeps you sharp, it keeps you focused for being able to do those longer sessions of, again, physical fitness, yoga, gives you that energy back that you
Yeah.
need to sustain that recovery. And then also it puts you in helps shape your mindset and your emotional state of being for that outer ring of wellness. When you're off duty, you can put it aside. You can be with your kids. You can be with your partner. You can be with your community, your friends, and you are not disconnected from that. You're not looking for a fix to remove what's going on in your head or to fix that depression that you've felt at times. And so that inner ring is critical. And again, that's where I failed. I didn't have those tools.
Hmm.
And it's why I teach what I teach now, because I
Yeah.
want to give officers those tools to support themselves and their team, and to help support the department's greater sort of work that they're doing in peer support and those other things that they have available to them.
Yeah.
So super critical.
Yeah. So Joe, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I'm going to ask you, a question. I told you, we keep it real here on
Yeah.
You and the Law podcast. Um, do you think that agencies have failed their officers with not recognizing and talking about wellness training, talking about peer support, and giving the men and women, some kind of outlet to reach out to, uh, because it may not be what was happening on the job. It may be something happening at home, or it
Sure.
can be a combination of both.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I
Yeah.
think, and I'm gonna say, uh, but I want to get your opinion, because I'll give you my opinion. I mean, you've been out training around police departments around the country. Do you see where agencies have failed to acknowledge some things that are going on?
Yeah. I think some have. Right.
Okay.
I think that it's obviously there's not across the board, but absolutely some agencies have, they put a stake in the sand at, hey, we got a peer support team, use it if you need it. We're going to give you, X amount of visits. And then after that, you're on your own.
Yeah.
And that's their mentality. It's because they have, and I would say it starts from the top down. It's because
It
they
definitely
have
does. Yeah.
leadership that didn't need that maybe, or they didn't understand that maybe. And now they don't realize how important it is.
Hmm.
And that we were talking about it earlier from a data standpoint and from a human standpoint, there's a return on investment on both ends.
Oh, it is.
And so I do think that some departments have failed their teams, but I also see, and I've heard you talk about it a little bit, that in the last 5 to, let's say, 5, 8, 10 years, there's been a greater understanding that this is not luxury training anymore. This
Yeah.
is not, if I can do it, it's I have to do it.
Yeah.
Is needed, and it's important. If you want a staff and a team that is connected, has the greatest impact on your communities,
Hmm.
going to make better decisions, fewer use of force incidents, fewer complaints, all that kind of stuff, and are healthy and connected, and again, working with each other, not against each other, then you need to be investing in this stuff and above and beyond what you're already doing. Look, I love that departments give officers those visits to talk to a psychologist, to talk to somebody. I love that they have a peer support team where officers can talk to those people and get feedback and resources. But what if those officers don't feel comfortable doing that?
Yeah.
To your point.
Yeah, exactly.
Here comes in. That's
Yeah.
the crux of it. Do they feel comfortable using those resources?
Mm-hmm.
And again, which is why I've really directed my training towards, let's break this culture of silence. Let's reshape the culture of communication and reshape the culture of seeing these things as tactical and not luxury.
Yeah. So Joe, I had on, and I think I told you this earlier when we were talking. A real good friend of mine's out of Oklahoma City, Keith DeRoy. He retired from Oklahoma City PD. Him and his wife, Tracy, they've been a part of the Oklahoma City Police Department's peer support team, and they are with two organizations. One is called How to Love Our Cops, and the other one is Warriors Rest.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get around not just Oklahoma, but around the country talking about peer support, how to put peer support teams together. But one of the things when I had them on the podcast, um, being in Oklahoma City, we experienced the federal built the bombing the Alpha P federal building, and Keith had mentioned how many hours he had spent running in and out of the building that day of the bombing. Just the scenes that we all saw working there, and when you see the carnage, the damage that took place, and the kids' lives that were lost, it takes a toll on people. And a real good friend of ours, he ended up committing suicide about a year after that. There was some speculation as to what was behind it, but his picture was seen all around the country, around the world, as running in and out of the federal building that day, and so there was a lot of what happened, why did he do this,
Mm-hmm.
and Keith was involved in two officer involved shootings. I found this real. It was strange when he was telling the story, Joe, that it took the department almost 7 or 8 years to send him to an after action review. And Oklahoma
Wow.
City is not a small department. It's a major city, a large department, over 1,000 men and women. And when he was going through that, it wasn't. Everybody would think it would be the officer involved shooting, but he
Mhm.
said it was what happened at the bombing of the federal building.
Yeah.
That he nobody talked about it. Nobody sat down and said, "Hey, how are you doing? You've been working maybe 18 hours, or you've been working 24 hours. You've seen all of this here, and now you got to come back and you got to do another shift." Nobody talked to anybody about it, and even the agency that I was with then, nobody, because there were so many surrounding suburb cities that sent officers to downtown Oklahoma City to work that, um, and people were just kind of like, "Hey, you kind of go back to where you came from. Um, if you're having problems, you get over it." And that's the one thing that we talked about over the last uh, year or so on the podcast, is that this is where I say that we failed, especially in a leadership role, because you can say, "Hey, there's just so much stuff going on, man. We just can't think of everything." But when you have officers who are taking their lives, we and this, Joe, suicide rate in this profession is high. It's one of the most leading
50, Yeah, 50% more than civilian.
Yeah, yeah, and so you have to stop and say, okay, why? What's going on that's making men and women take their own lives in this profession? Is it the job? Is it something going on at home? How can we fix it? How can we help? And we've not done a good job of that. And versus when you look in the military and in the privates, they've got their own problems. But in first responders, it's something that we have not invested a lot of money, a lot of time into it. And because there's a lot of people that are coping with a lot of things, Joe, but
Yeah.
the they don't have the resources or the people to connect to. And like you said, if you go to somebody and talk to a sergeant or even talk to another officer, that is the most confidential conversation you can have.
Yeah.
And you have now it becomes a gossip like, hey man, Joe, I don't know about Joe. Now I don't know about, I don't know about you know, you know, this other female officer over here, whatever. And now you may get shift to another precinct or get assigned to a different shift or people not talking to you.
Yep.
We don't do a good job of taking care of our own, but we are very good at gossiping about it. And that's the one thing that has hurt us so much, Joe. And and you know, how do we change that? How do you change that stigma?
Yeah, I think it comes with awareness. Awareness first. Conversations like this first,
Yeah.
where we acknowledge that there is a culture of silence around wellness and staying well in different ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, and with purpose.
Yeah.
And there is a lack of silence when it comes to gossip and talking about those people that and officers that are confidentially trying to have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
And so I think one, acknowledgement, awareness, and then the continued work. I hope what I'm doing is having an impact on that. I hope what your last guest is doing with his book and his training systems is having an impact on that.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the peer support leaders and officers believe in what they are doing and are having an impact from the inside out of those agencies on what we just talked about. Because the suicide rate being 50% higher than civilian employed people, the use of force, the poor decision making, the sleep disorders that cause those things.
Yeah.
Almost 40% plus of officers are dealing with some sort of sleep disorder.
Yeah.
And that leads to these other things happening. There is a direct correlation.
Yeah.
And so I think it comes down to, Virgil, is conversations like this.
Yeah.
Trainings like I'm doing and awareness.
Yeah. Well, and Joe, and I say this, and I think for the most part, uh, before some training like this needs to be brought into a department, you know who are the first people who should go through that training?
Leadership.
The
Absolutely.
chief, the command staff, the leadership needs to go through a training like this here before it's even rolled out to the entire department.
Yeah.
Because if the leadership does not understand this training, and at the same time, Joe, there are things that we are dealing with in a leadership role that we just kind of dismiss. And we don't have, on the executive level, you don't have the outlets or the resources to talk to somebody, because you may have a friend, a colleague who's another chief. You may be, depending on how long you know each other, you may feel real comfortable to reach out and say, hey, listen, I'm dealing with some stuff. I just need somebody to talk to, because that person is not going to say anything. But that may just be that one person. Now, if you say, hey, I need to, like here in Minnesota, the agency has what's called checkup from the neck up.
Mhm.
Very private. You go see, a professional psychologist, talk to that person. The chief doesn't know anything about it other than, hey, I may be signing off on an invoice that shows that
Right.
you went to a session, but I don't need to know what you and that therapist talked about.
Right.
Uh, and again, everything needs to be kept very confidential.
Yep.
But I think we in executive leadership need to go through this here because that's where the investment is. That's where things are going to get approved. And that's where you're going to say to your city manager or mayor, hey, come next year's budget, I need to add, you
Mhm.
know, $5,000 or $10,000 to our training
Right.
that's going to really help focus on wellness. Because guess what? We've had several incidents that have happened within the department. And if this training was available, it could have prevented that. And I think
Right.
that's where the investment comes. And people need to know in order, and I don't think we do a good enough job, Joe, in municipal policing to say we're running a business, but we've got to invest in the people that we're employing because the community is the ones that's going to suffer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the officers are a part of that community. The command staff is a part of that community. And it for lack of a better term, it rots from the inside out.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. Two things I love to do is I love to have command staff and patrol staff in my trainings together.
Mhm.
And what this does is we all know for years there's been a big chasm between administration and patrol. And there's oftentimes this tension and
Yeah.
this misunderstanding. And so again, the stuff I'm teaching is very tactical. It's very simple. It's not easy because you got to do it.
Yeah.
But if you can get both of these sides in at the same time, and command staff knows what the patrol is learning, and patrol knows that the command staff is learning it as well. And so now when the commander is walking down the hall and they see, Johnny or Jane officer walking down the hall and they say, hey, hold up for a second. How you doing? I'm just doing a check-in with you. Doing
Yeah.
all right? Hey, I know you went on that call the other day and it was a bad DV. It had to have been tough. Let me just acknowledge what you went through.
Yeah.
Hey, we have some resources. Make sure you're taking advantage of those. And encouragement. This is the CARE protocol. It's check-in, it is acknowledgement, it's resources, and it's encouragement. Hey,
Yeah.
I got you. I got your back. And they now believe that, right? They now believe it because you both sat in the same room together and you worked through these things together. And now you have the same tools that you're using.
Yeah. Well, and I think, this is another important thing, Joe, that officers need to hear that coming from the chief.
Yeah.
It's important. It definitely, from a sergeant or a lieutenant or a captain, whatever the structure of the agency is.
Yep.
But it goes a long way when the police chief walks up to somebody and say, hey, how you doing? Or,
Right.
hey, I'm not trying to get in your business, but I just want to make sure you're doing okay.
Yep.
And if you're having some things going on, and it's not to say, hey, I know something is going on. It's just to break down that barrier to say, hey, what's going on? How you doing? How's your day going? And the one thing that I have tried to do at the agencies that I have been at is have a connection with the men and women. And that may mean, hey, let's have a potluck dinner. Or hey, let's we got a grill outside. Man, I'll fire up the grill and put some hamburger patties or put some wieners on. We'll have some hamburgers and hot dogs right before shift briefing. Or, again, you have to have a connection with people because as you and I talked before the podcast, there's a whole new generation of men and women who are coming into this profession. They may have worked at Target.
Right.
And next thing they know, hey, I want to become a police officer. And they're like, oh, wow, man, Target was better than this here. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
But you've got to be able to connect with men and women.
Yeah. This work that's being done as a police officer in wellness, it starts with two things. It starts with personal responsibility and relationship.
Yeah.
Personal responsibility. The moment that you decide that it's not my command staff, it's not my supervisor, it's not this department that I'm in, it's not my circumstances, it's me. And
Yeah.
I have the control to change this. And you take personal responsibility for those changes, you begin to win. And you begin to cultivate those relationships that need to be cultivated. And you start having influence. You become the leader, because leadership is not a title. Leadership is action. And you begin to have that influence when one takes personal responsibility and decides that relationship is what's going to push this forward.
Oh yeah, definitely. Relationships is what's really important. Well, Joe, man, we're coming up, man. An hour goes by pretty quick when we're
Yes,
having a good
yes.
conversation. And I have to say this, man. I definitely would like to invite you to come back on the podcast to finish talking more about the training that you're doing, the tactical wellness for first responders, and also, something that I really want to get into tonight, but we'll have to do it on another podcast. You mentioned, everybody can see you got tattoos around, and what, going into an agency and people are looking at that and be kind of like, oh man, they got this guy coming in. I want to, that's for another podcast, but I definitely want to
Sure.
get you to come back on to talk more about the tactical wellness training that you're doing, but also some of the other barriers that are being broken in doing some of this training.
Yeah.
So Joe, if somebody wants to get in touch with you to bring this training to the agency, how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to come back on and talk about that tip of the spear on breaking barriers with regards to, body art and with regards to this kind of training. And if somebody wants to get in touch with me, bring me out in 2026. I'm constantly booking new workshops. You go to my website, joeswansontactical.com. You can also reach out to me directly, joe@joeswansontactical.com. That's my email. And just, hit me up, send me an email. There's a form on my website. You can get in touch with me that way as well. And then we just start the conversation and we talk about, you're not going to get any hard sales pitch from me. If it fits, it fits.
You're not a salesman.
I'm a great salesman, but I don't need to sell this. I want it to be purposeful and meaningful for the person that is the department that's getting it. And so what we do is we break down what you're already doing and see where this can fit in. Again, oftentimes the training that I've created, this tactical resilience training system, is very focused on being a strength to what you're already doing and a conduit from patrol to these other resources. And so we break that down on a conversation, and we decide what type of training is going to be the best as far as, am I going to just come in and teach just at your department? Are we going to have some from your department and some regionally? Are we going to just host a training and have multiple agencies come in? Or what I love to do is, can we come in and have the command staff from the region come on in and fill a room with those guys and gals and get this understanding of communication, relationship, and personal responsibility just oozing out of the leadership.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, Joe, man, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on You and the Law podcast to talk about your tactical wellness training and the speaking that you're doing around the country, man. You're definitely making a difference in this profession. And so, with the holidays and stuff coming up, I definitely want to get you to come back on. in the near future to talk more about this wellness training, because as we said earlier, you cannot talk about wellness. You have to continue to talk about wellness.
Yeah,
it is
I
really important.
agree. Yeah, and I'd be happy to come on. We'll just coordinate a date off the air, and I'd love to come back on. I told you earlier today I can talk about this for hours.
Oh yeah,
It's a passion of mine because I've lived it and I needed it. And I know there's officers out there right now. There's departments who want to invest in their officers who need this as well, and create greater impact in their areas. And so I'm available. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Exactly. All right. I appreciate it. So I want to remind everybody, if you enjoyed this episode of You and the Law podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Doesn't cost you anything. All you need to do is just go click that subscribe button and leave us a review. Put a review on there. You can also follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on Facebook at You and the Law Podcast. So tell a friend to tell a friend to go and check out You and the Law Podcast. So, Joe, next week I'm going to have on a guest, and I want to let you and everybody else know it's going to have on a guest named Reggie Gidding. He is the author of a book called Drama Behind the Badge. And when you talk about drama behind the badge, it's going to touch on some wellness. It's going to touch on a lot of different things. So next Thursday, here's a little teaser that I'm going to be having on a guest who has a book out, and it's called Drama Behind the Badge. So make sure you tune in next Thursday for definitely another informative conversation on here, You and the Law podcast. But Joe, I want to thank you again for coming on the podcast. And man, we're definitely going to be connecting again to get you to come back on and talk more about wellness.
Virgil, it was very, very, it was my honor to come on. I appreciate it so much. Keep doing the great work that you're doing. And I'll definitely be tuning in next Thursday.
Okay. All right, then. All right. Well, everybody, again, thank you for tuning in to You and the Law podcast. And we will see you right here next week on You and the Law podcast.
That's a wrap on this episode of You and the Law podcast. We've got more eye-opening conversations and hard-hitting insights coming your way, so make sure you subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcast, and stay ready, because the next episode might just change the way you see law enforcement forever.